Welcome to the story world.
Mr. Joseph lived in a sprawling metropolis. He possessed the most opulent and beautiful bungalow in the entire city. The walls of that house were clad in velvet. Its windows were crafted from intricately carved wood, and its garden bloomed with the most exquisite flowers in the world. This bungalow was not merely a structure of bricks and mortar. It was a symbol of Mr. Joseph's ego and his social standing. In the evenings, he would often sit upon his velvet sofa, gaze out through those carved windows at the setting sun, and swell with pride. Mr. Joseph had devoted his entire youth to adorning this home. He could not tolerate even a single drop of water falling upon the floor, nor the slightest speck of dirt. Mr. Joseph was so deeply attached to his home that he could not bear even a single scratch upon it. Many wealthy individuals offered to pay double, even triple, its market value for the house, yet Mr. Joseph would always reply,
"This is not merely a house, it is my very life. I shall never sell it."
He believed that the day he no longer possessed this home, his very existence would cease to be. Once, Mr. Joseph was obliged to travel to a neighboring state to attend a business conference. He was reluctant to go, fearing that in his absence, someone might harm his precious flowers. Yet, the business at hand was imperative. Upon his return, while still at a distance, he spotted a plume of black smoke billowing into the sky. As his car turned into the street, he was struck with sheer horror. His beloved home was engulfed in flames. The scene was heart-wrenching. The bungalow, which he had so often referred to as his life, was now writhing amidst billowing black smoke and searing orange flames. People were frantically hurling bucket after bucket of water onto the fire, and fire brigade trucks wailed their sirens in the background. Yet the blaze was so ferocious that extinguishing it proved utterly impossible. Upon seeing this, Mr. Joseph burst into tears.
My home. The earnings of my entire life are going up in flames. I am ruined.
Mr. Joseph's demeanor had become almost frenzied. He repeatedly tried to rush toward the raging flames as if he could extinguish the fire with his bare hands. His neighbors were holding him back, pulling him away. His intricately carved windows had turned black from the heat, and those velvet-clad walls were now crumbling into ash. He was screaming, and the tears streaming from his eyes simply would not cease. Just then, his eldest son, John, cut through the crowd to reach him. He placed a hand on his father's shoulder and spoke softly.
"Father, calm down. Stop crying."
There was a strange composure in John's voice, a steadiness that Mr. Joseph, in that moment of distress, failed to grasp. Overcome with a mixture of anger and grief, Mr. Joseph shouted,
"How can I be calm? Our home is turning to ash."
He felt that John perhaps did not understand the true value of the sheer hard work he had poured into building this house. He was just about to scold John when the young man whispered into his ear,
"Father, you don't know, just yesterday, I sold this house to a wealthy businessman. He offered such an excellent price that I simply couldn't wait for your return. The paperwork was signed and finalized yesterday itself."
As these words reached Mr. Joseph's ears, something akin to a miracle occurred. The tension drained from his body. Upon hearing this, Mr. Joseph's tears seemed to vanish instantly. He took a deep, steady breath and said,
"Oh, thank God. In that case, this is no longer our home. I was agonizing over it all for nothing."
Now, the very fire that had been consuming him just seconds earlier had become nothing more than a mere spectacle. His emotional bond with that bungalow had been severed. He wiped away his tears, casually slipped his hands into his pockets, and began watching the fiery scene with complete ease. He no longer even noticed the neighbors who were frantically rushing about to offer assistance. His mind was now occupied solely with thoughts of the substantial sum of money he was about to receive. Only a few minutes had passed when his second son, Neil, arrived there, panting heavily. He observed that his father was standing there nonchalantly, watching the house burn. Neil shouted,
"Father! Are you just standing here watching the spectacle? Our house is burning to ashes over there. Do something."
Neil was deeply distressed. He feared that, perhaps due to the shock, his father had lost his mental balance. His father smiled and said,
Son, don't worry. John sold it just yesterday. It no longer belongs to us, but to that businessman. Let it burn, what does it matter to us?
There was an air of utter nonchalance in Mr. Joseph's smile, a carefree attitude that surfaces only when the loss being incurred belongs to someone else. However, Neil possessed a piece of information that was about to completely overturn this entire scenario once again. Neil clutched his head in despair and said,
"But father, he only paid a small advance. The full payment hasn't been made yet. Now that he has seen the house burn down, why would he pay the remaining balance? I fear he will back out of the deal, and legally, the house is still registered in our name."
Neil's words struck Mr. Joseph like a bolt of lightning. The concept of ownership reawakened in his mind. The moment he realized that the loss might, after all, still be his grief surged back to life. Upon hearing this, Mr. Joseph's face turned ashen once again. His heart began to pound furiously, and the tears that had dried up moments earlier began to flow anew. He started screaming again.
Oh, no! Pour water on it. Someone save my house. We are ruined.
Mr. Joseph had reverted to his earlier state of hysteria. He began hurling abuses at the fire brigade crew, accusing them of working too slowly. He started pleading with his neighbors to fetch more water. The onlookers were bewildered, watching Mr. Joseph swing wildly between fits of laughter and bouts of weeping. People could not fathom how a single person's emotions could shift so rapidly. Just then, a third voice rang out from amidst the crowd. At that very moment, his youngest son Jay arrived on the scene. He appeared remarkably calm. Jay spoke up.
"Father Neil, why are you two so distressed? I have just come from meeting the very merchant who is purchasing the house."
Mr. Joseph's breath caught in his throat once again. He felt as though the final verdict was now imminent, determining whether they would remain wealthy or end up destitute on the streets. With eyes filled with hope, Mr. Joseph asked,
What did he say? Is he still going to buy the house?
Jay observed the deep lines etched across his father's face and the trembling in his eyes. He reached out and grasped his father's hand. Smiling gently, Jay said,
"Yes, father. That man is a man of his word."
A hush fell over the crowd as everyone leaned in to listen to Jay. He recounted,
I gave my word yesterday that I would buy the house, and I will not go back on my promise. The fire was merely an accident, neither you nor I are to blame. Whether the house burned down or not, it is mine now, and I will pay the full price.
Upon hearing Jay's words, it felt as though a heavy burden had been lifted from Mr. Joseph's shoulders. Mr. Joseph breathed a deep sigh of relief. He wiped away his sweat and grew calm. Now he stood once again like a mere spectator. The spectacle was still unfolding. The fire was still just as fierce and the house was still burning just as furiously. Yet now there was no sorrow left in Mr. Joseph's heart. The very fire that moments earlier had seemed like death itself now appeared to be nothing more than a source of light. Mr. Joseph realized that the burning of the house was not the tragedy. Rather, it was his own sense of possessiveness, his attachment to the house as mine, that had been the true source of his suffering. Mr. Joseph looked at his sons and said,
Children, today I have learned a profound lesson. As long as I regarded this house as mine, I was in agony. But the moment I perceived it as not mine, as something detached from me, it ceased to matter to me at all. The fire is the same, the house is the same, only my attachment has changed.
Mr. Joseph now gazed upon the rubble, the very ruins he once referred to as his life. He realized that he had spent the precious years of his existence solely in nurturing this attachment. The children and onlookers witnessing this scene understood that the greatest source of suffering in the world lies in clinging too tightly to something, or in claiming it as one's own. Finally, when the fire had died down and only smoke remained, Mr. Joseph walked away from the spot with a smile. He no longer possessed a home, yet he carried within him a sense of peace that is not to be found even within the walls of palaces. This story teaches us, excessive attachment is the root of suffering. An excessive emotional attachment to material objects is precisely what renders a human being mentally unstable and unhappy. The importance of perspective. Circumstances themselves do not change. Rather, it is our attitude toward them that determines our happiness and peace of mind. The world is ephemeral. Material possessions are liable to be destroyed at any moment. Therefore, it is an act of folly to anchor one's sense of identity to them.
Please like, share, subscribe, and comment. Also press the bell icon.